Hey everybody, what's going on? It's John Michael Kiono, broker associate for Compass Real Estate and realtor. For now. Haha. Yep, I wanted to make a quick video. Of course, today you've probably heard about all the news regarding the National Association of Realtors, or the NRA settlement, and what it actually means. As of now, it doesn't really mean a lot, but I've been following the case for the last several months and have my opinions of why it shouldn't have went down, but that's going to be for another video. So I'm going to try to keep this under a couple of minutes to kind of bring you up to speed. So basically, the lawsuit was really about sellers feeling that they had paid or been wronged, that they're paying buyers' brokerages or buyers' agents for whatever reason. They felt that they were harmed, filed a lawsuit, and here we are. So basically, what it means is that listing brokerages, or actually the MLS, is no longer or will no longer be allowed to advertise commissions to buyer brokerages on the MLS, which is why I said I may not be a realtor in a couple of years, because it may dissolve. So the way the National Association is set up is that it's a national association, there's a state association, there's a local association. For the most part, all local associations kind of handle all of the listings that come in that all brokerages kind of sign. You don't have to become a realtor. You can be, hey, I just want to list the property or whatever, and that's allowed. But for the most part, the MLS exists for us to all share our information about what we have as a listing and the information. And if you have a buyer, great, come show it. And if we're able to do a deal, great, we'll pay you. And that is the key. We will pay you. Compass, whatever brokerage has the listing agreement. And this is my opinion of how it works. But I've read the contract for the last 25 years, and it really hasn't changed that much. So the way that it's set up in California, because that's the state that I work in, and I don't know what the listing agreements are back in the Midwest or back east. The laws are different. So in California, the listing agreements clearly state that the seller agrees to hire or pay, let's say for this Compass, a fee for bringing them a willing and able buyer and ready buyer. If they come to an agreement, close the transaction, we obviously get paid. Now, that is the listing agreement. The listing agreement clearly says it's between the seller and Compass. Now, there is a subclause in the listing agreement that we say, that we disclose to the seller, that we will pay X amount to the buyer's brokerage if they bring us a buyer and we're able to close a deal, a successful transaction. And that exists between the listing broker, the MLS, and the buyer's brokerages. Now, we can disclose it, and that's just more or less disclosure that, hey, look at, yes, you're paying for it. We'll take this right now. You're paying us 5%. We will give, I've seen offers of commissions for 2%. I know that the listing agent is getting 5%, so they're keeping more money in-house for whatever reason, but it is all negotiable and it is disclosed. So we, as a buyer's agent or a buyer's broker who has a client and sees a house and says, oh, look at that. We don't look at the commission. We look that the house is available. We always understand that there's going to be some type of co-op fee, because that's just the nature of the business. Because if I worked for Century 21, same listing agreement would exist. And if a Compass brought us a buyer, guess what would happen? Century 21 would pay Compass brokerage a fee that was disclosed to the seller. It could be $1. It doesn't really matter. But we're just saying to the listing agents or the listing brokers are telling the seller that we are not going to blow any opportunities or cut anybody out because of non-compensation. So let's just say I am a seller, list my house, and then there's a different agent who doesn't work for the company that I hired to sell the home, who has a buyer. But that buyer's brokerage or buyer's agency no longer or is not going to show this house because there is no agreement for compensation, period. And since we're not going to be paying them, which the way it has been and the way the listing agreements are drafted, now what happens is the buyer's agent, the buyer's brokerage, whoever's representing them, is going to have to negotiate either with the buyer directly to say, hey, look, this is what our normal fee is going to be, 2.5%. You're going to have to pay us $25,000 on $1 million home. Most buyers are like, dude, I'm tapped out. This is what I have. And that's not going to happen. And so now what's going to happen is that the way that they're saying is that the buyer's agents and the buyer's brokerages are going to have to negotiate a fee when they submit an offer. So before the offers are really clean, they come in, okay, we got an offer, blah, 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 blah. The seller would say, hey, are we going to have to pay him any more money? No, you don't. We're taking care of it. You're paying us a fee, and if we close the transaction, we are going to compensate them from Compass, not you, whatever fee that we agreed upon. Now, in addition, now that they have that offer, the seller may say, I'm not paying this. No, I'm not going to pay. You pay it. And then the listing broker is going to say, well, no, that's our fee. We're not going to share it. And that's basically that's where we're at right now. And so I don't think the fees are going to change too much between the listing brokerages and the sellers. But I think what's really going to happen is that the buyers are going to be in a really tough spot, because if you're going to have to pay your buyer's agent, are you going to pay the cheapest one who may be the least experienced or not the best? What kind of representation are you actually hiring? And that's really tough because you don't really know. I mean, there could just be a realtor or just an agent that's standing there at the right time. I want to buy this house, and that's it. And at that point, someone's negotiating a fee on your behalf, or they're charging a fee on your behalf that may not be the best representation. So that's kind of where it gets really, really muddy. And it's unfortunate because, like I said, this is my opinion, the way that the case was handled, but it should have went to trial. And the reality is that the listing agreements in California, like I can't speak for back east or the Midwest, where most of this stuff started, that's where the cases started, is that it's strictly between the seller and the listing brokerage. And like I said, we do disclose in the listing contract that if there is another outside agency that brings a buyer, that we will compensate them on a pre-disclosed amount. Now, the seller could have said, hey, you know what? Why don't we, it's a 5% fee. Why don't you take 1% and let's give them 4% for bringing the buyer? If we agree to that, we can do that. But it really is between the person that they're hiring. The fiduciary in this transaction is the listing broker and the seller. And that is the key word. The fiduciary in this transaction is always going to be the listing broker. That is who the seller is hiring, period. They're not hiring the buyer's brokerage or the buyer's agency. There is no agreement that stands between the seller and the buyer and the buyer's agency or buyer's brokerage. It is strictly between the seller and the listing broker, period. That's the fiduciary. That's who the listing agreement is based upon, and that is who the seller is paying. When there is a settlement, a closing settlement at the end of escrow, you will see the seller pays Compass, and out of that, Compass pays somebody else. And so here we are. That's my take on it. I went way over the 2 minutes. I hope I'm going to make some more videos of more information that comes out, but I think this is a good place to start to kind of wrap your head around what's going on and potentially what will happen to the NRA or the local association of realtors. Because if we're no longer going to be doing this, there really is no need to have an MLS. Then every company is going to dictate or pretty much control their own listing. And because we're not going to be compensating anybody, or there's not going to be any co-op. And based on the settlement that they have with NRA, is that it can no longer be listed on the MLS that there is going to be a buyer's brokerage co-op fee. And so that's where we're at. I hope you found this enjoyable. Sorry it took a little long. This is my first one in a while, but I'm going to pick them up because there's a lot of things changing in the industry, and I want to keep you guys informed. So have a wonderful weekend. Have a happy St. Patrick's Day. Don't drink and drive.